Hello my people, welcome back to ladensercrochets. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. Kindly subscribe and join the family. My name is Liz. In this tutorial, we're going to make this dress that can double up as a cover-up dress, or you can attach a lining and wear it as a normal dress. These are the measurements that we're going to need. First, you're going to need your bust measurement. And I'm working a bust measurement of 36. So you're going to take your bust measurement and divide it by 2, and this will give me 18. Then whatever you're going to get here, I've gotten 18, I'll take 18 plus 4, and this will give me 22. So whatever you get, you're going to add 4 inches. We are working in inches. Then you're going to need the top length. That is the length from the waist up. The other measurement you're going to need is the waist measurement. And I'm marking a waist measurement of 30. Then you're going to need the hips measurement, and I'm marking hips measurement of 45. Let me confirm my top length. All these measurements are in inches. So get those measurements. I'll confirm my top measurements, then get back. I'm marking a top measurement of 12 inches. And this is the measurement from slightly above your bust up to the waist. Now get those measurements and let's get into the tutorial. For this project, I'll be using this yarn. It's Robin, which is 100% acrylic. As you can see, it's a very thin yarn, and therefore I'll be doubling my strands in order to achieve the medium weight effect. Then I'll be using my 4mm crochet hook. You're going to need stitch markers, a pair of scissors, a darning needle, and a measuring tape. I have the 2 strands right here. So I'm going to begin with a slip knot. And then start with a chain of 28. This is standard for everyone, chain 28. That's my 28 chains. Then I'm going to add one more chain to get to 29. And then I'll block off the 29th chain and chain one more. Insert my hook into the 29th chain and pull up a loop to get 2 loops on the hook. Then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops to complete a single crochet. Insert your hook into the next chain and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and pull through the 2. Then another single crochet into the next chain. 1 single crochet into the chain that follows. And we're going to place 1 single crochet into every chain till we get to the end. At the end, we should have a total of 29 single crochets. I'm at the end of row 1 and I'm ready to begin row 2. So to begin row 2, we start by chaining 3. The chain 3 acts as a double crochet plus a chain 1. Then we turn. When you turn, you're going to work a double crochet into this chain, that very first stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's a V-stitch. Then we're going to chain 2, yarn over, count 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Insert your hook into the 4th stitch and do a double crochet. Then chain 1, another double crochet into that stitch. That's the second V-stitch. Chain 2, yarn over and count 4 stitches, 1 2 3 and 4, double crochet into the 4th stitch, chain 1, another double crochet. And now we're going to repeat this to the end. At the end we should have 4 stitches remaining, and therefore we're going to chain 2 and then skip over to the last stitch and place a double crochet V-stitch there. And there we are done with row 2. Chain 3 and turn to begin row 4. We're going to begin row 4 in this chain 1 gap. So right there we're going to place a double crochet. Next we're going to work an increase, and to do that we're going to chain 1 and go back into that chain 1 gap and do another double crochet, so that in total we have 3 double crochets separated by a chain 1, like that. Then we're going to chain 2, skip over to the next V-stitch and place another V-stitch on it. So that's double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet, chain 2, move over to the next V-stitch and work a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet. Then we repeat to the end, and at the end we're going to work another increase. I'll do a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet, chain 1, a third double crochet into that same chain 1 gap. And that's the end of row 3. Then chain 3 and turn to begin row 4. So when you turn into this first chain 1 gap, we're going to place 1 double crochet, then chain 2, then work into the next chain 1 gap with a V-stitch, that is a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet. This is row 4. So now that's what you're getting at the beginning, and then all the other parts will just get 1 V-stitch, and then at the end we're going to work just like we've worked here. So chain 2, V-stitch into the next V-stitch, at the end we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to work in the first chain 1 gap. We're going to place a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet, then chain 2, and in the last gap we do the double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet. And we are done with row 4. Now we're going to work row 5 without an increase. So chain 3 and turn, begin in the first gap with a double crochet, chain 2, V-stitch into the next V-stitch, then repeat to the end. That's the end of row 5. So now we're going to work row 6, and we're going to work row 6 same way we've worked row 3 with an increase. So begin by a chain 3 and turn into this gap, place a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet into that same gap. Repeat the pattern to the end and then increase in the last V-stitch. I'm at the end, and so in this gap I'm going to do the increase, that is a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet, then chain 1, a third double crochet into the same stitch. And that's the end of row 6, which is the same as row 3. Then row 7 is the same as row 4. Row 8 is the same as row 5. So we're just going to keep on repeating row 3, 4, and 5 until we've measured this measurement from here to here while stretching, and it is equals to your bust measurement. So start with a chain 3 and turn. Begin right here with a double crochet, chain 2, a double crochet V-stitch into the next chain 1 gap, then chain 2 and repeat to the end. So when you're measuring the bust measurement, this is how you go about it. From one end to the other, and then stretch. So when I stretch this out, it's getting me to 15.5. As we do that, we also need to measure the length. And for the length, we measure without stretching, and I'm at a length of 3.5. So let me keep working the increases on each of the two ends until I get to my bust measurement. Then I'll be back and show you what to do next. So repeat row 3, 4, and 5. This right here is after 19 rows, and I've gotten to my bust measurement, which is 22. That is 18 plus 4, which was giving me 22. And I'm measuring this while stretching just slightly, a little bit. So from one end to the other, and then slightly stretching to get to the 22. That's 19 rows. So if your bust is bigger, then you might need to do more rows with the increase. Then as for the length, we measure without stretching, and my length is at 9 inches, slightly above 9 inches, and I want to work up to 12. So now from row 20 until I get 12 inches, I'm just going to work without increasing at all. So that means beginning from here, I'll just chain 3 and work a V-stitch, just one into each of the V-stitches. So chain 3 and turn, then work the double crochet, chain 2, we work a double crochet into the next V-stitch, that is a double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet. And then I'll just keep repeating this for the next few rows that will get me to the 12 inches. This is after 24 rows and I've gotten to the 12 inches in length. Right there. So now I'm ready to start the next part, and to do that we're going to chain a multiple of 4. We're going to chain a multiple of 4 that will get us to the waist measurement, and we're going to do this without stretching because we don't want something that is too tight. We want something that will be able to, you'll be able to wear over your shoulders easily. So now without stretching, I'm at a length of 20, and so I'm going to chain a chain that is a multiple of 4 to get me to 30 inches, which is my waist length. So now this chain should have a length of 10. So that's 10, and it's going to get me to 30 plus the 20. And I've done a total of 40 chains. Now after chaining, we're going to connect this end. We're going to connect to this point. And now we are turning this into a dress. So then from here, I'm going to chain 3 at that point. Then I'll go back into that chain, into that gap, and do another double crochet to make the V-stitch. Then I'll chain 2, do a V-stitch onto this next V-stitch. Chain 2, another V-stitch next, then repeat till you get to where the chains begin. So I'm going to repeat this pattern till I get to this point. Then I'll meet you right there to show you what to do next. Once I get to the chain, we're going to chain 2, yarn over, and we're going to skip to count 4 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Into the 4th chain, we're going to do a V-stitch there. Then chain 2, yarn over, count 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and do a V-stitch. count 2, chain 2 that is, then we count 4 stitches or 4 chains, chain 2, count 4 chains, and I'll work a V-stitch into the fourth. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2 and repeat to the end. At the end, I'll chain 2 and then skip all the remaining chains, then work into the chain 1 gap, slip stitch like that. Then I'm going to chain 1 and cut off the yarn at that point. And now this is what we have. The next thing that we're going to do is determine the middle part of this extension part that we've done, and I'm going to do that by counting 1, 2 from either side, 3, and 4. So this will be the middle part. I'll mark it. That is the exact middle of my work at the back. So then I'll get this point and hold my work like this to determine the exact middle of the front part. Then get this part and bring it together with the marked part like this and like this. So now that will give us the points where we're going to work increases for the hips. So this point and this point on the other side, I'll get stitch markers and mark those points. So you want to mark on the chain 1 gap. So I'm going to mark on this chain 1 on the V stitch on one side. And now that I've marked on this side, I can just count same number of stitches as I have. So this 1, 2, and 3. So on the other side, I should also count 1, 2, and mark the third. Right there. So to achieve the hip measurement, I'll increase at these 2 points. So I'll measure from here to see the measurement that I have so far while slightly stretching, and I'm at 19 and that is 38. So now I'm going to increase until I get to 22.5, which is 45 multiplied when it's multiplied by 2. Now this will be, we're going to turn our work like this, and you can reconnect the yarn either on this V stitch or on this other one. So I'll reconnect right here. Start with a slip knot, then reconnect the yarn, then chain 3, get back into that V stitch and do a double crochet, chain 2. We don't need this stitch marker, so I'll just pull it out, and then I'll do a double crochet V stitch into the next V stitch until I get to the stitch marker. At the stitch marker, I'll pull it out and do an increase at that point. First chain 2, then in that V stitch do a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet, chain 1, a third double crochet, chain 1, and a fourth double crochet. Then we're going to mark in the middle one, this one right here, like that. Then we're going to continue until we get to the next stitch marker where we're going to increase. So chain 2, V stitch next, chain 2, and continue. We get to the stitch marker and take it out, then we're going to do an increase right there, and that is we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1, a second double crochet, chain 1, a third double crochet, chain 1, and a fourth double crochet. Then we're going to place the stitch marker in the middle chain 1 stitch, because that's the point where we're going to be increasing in the next rows. Then after that we're going to chain 2, work a double crochet V stitch into the next V stitch, and continue till we get to the point where we began this round. At the end of the round, we're going to chain 2, then do a slip stitch onto the first V stitch that we did in that round. And this is the end of round 3. So now we are ready to begin round 4, and from this point we are not turning anymore, as you've seen. So we're just going to chain 3 from that point. Chain 3, go back into that V stitch with a double crochet. That's our first V stitch. Chain 2, work a V stitch into the next V stitch, and then repeat the pattern till you get to the stitch marker. When we get there, I'll show you what to do at that point. When we get to the increased part, we're chaining 2, and then we're going to work a V stitch into the first chain 1 gap that we created in the point of increase. Next, we're going to chain 2 and pull out the stitch marker from the chain 1 in the middle and place a V stitch there. Then we get the stitch marker and mark that V stitch that we've just done. Next, we chain 2 and work a third increase into the third chain 1 gap that we created at the point of increase. So at that point, we have 3 V stitches, and then for the rest of the round, we're just going to work a chain 2 and then a V stitch into each of the V stitch. So now we're going to repeat this pattern until we get to the next stitch marker. At the second stitch marker, we're going to do the same thing, that is place a V stitch into that stitch that is marked and into the previous stitch and onto the second stitch, and make sure that they are separated by a chain 2. Then mark the stitch where the stitch marker was. So keep marking that point, and then now we're going to continue with a chain 2, a V stitch next, a chain 2, a V-stitch next, and then repeat till you get to the end of the round. Chain 2 at the end and then do a slip stitch onto the first V-stitch. That completes the round, so we chain 3 and go back into that chain 1 gap with another double crochet. So that together with the chain we get a V-stitch, chain 2, work a V-stitch into the next V-stitch. And for this round we're just going to work one V-stitch into each of the V-stitches separated by the chain 2. When we get to the stitch marker, we're just going to pull it out and do a V-stitch there, but then we're not increasing, so then we just continue to the end of the round with just one V-stitch into each of the V-stitches. I'm at the stitch marker right now, so I'll just pull it out and work a V-stitch at that point. Then because we're not increasing, after working the V-stitch, we're just going to place the stitch marker back so that we know the point where we're increasing next. So just put it back and continue with one V-stitch into each V-stitch separated by the chain 2 till you get to the end. I'll meet you at the end to show you what to do next. At the end, do the chain 2 and then slip stitch onto the first V-stitch, and we're done. We're just going to measure this to see how far along we are, or if you're getting closer to our hip measurements. Get the measuring tape and measure from one stitch marker to the next. As we take the hip measurements, we stretch out our work to see whether we are getting closer to the hip measurement. Right now I'm at around 21 inches, which is a hip measurement of 42, and because I want to get to 45, I'll keep increasing. So the next round that we are working is an increase round, and we're going to begin from the point where we did the slip stitch and start by chaining 3. Then after the chain 3, go back into that V-stitch with a double crochet, chain 2, work a V-stitch into the previous V-stitch, and work one V-stitch into every V-stitch till you get to the stitch marker where we're going to do an increase. When you get to the stitch marker, take it out, and then we do the increase, starting with one double crochet, chain 1, a second double crochet, chain 1, a third double crochet into the same stitch, chain 1, and a fourth double crochet. Then we're going to get the stitch marker and mark the middle part or the middle chain. After marking that chain, we're going to chain 2 and work a V-stitch into the previous V-stitches until we get to the next stitch marker. And when we get to the next stitch marker, we're going to do another increase similar to the one that we've done in this other part. Take out the second stitch marker and do the increase, that is, do a double crochet, 1, chain 1, a second double crochet, chain 1, a third double crochet, chain 1, and a fourth double crochet. Get your stitch marker and mark the middle chain 1 gap. Then keep working normally to the end. At the end, do the slip stitch onto the first chain 1 gap, and this is what we have so far. Chain 3 at the beginning of the next round and work a double crochet into that first gap to create a V-stitch. Chain 2, work a V-stitch into the next V-stitch. Then repeat till you get to the chain 1 before the stitch marker, and I'll meet you there. Chain 2 and work a V-stitch into that chain 1 gap before the stitch marker. Then chain 2, and before then pull out the stitch marker. Then you're going to chain 2 and go into that gap where the stitch marker was and place a double crochet V-stitch. Get the stitch marker and mark that V-stitch that you've just made. Then chain 2, work into the next chain 1 gap, chain 2 and work normally till you get to the next gap before the stitch marker, and then you're going to work the same way we've worked to this point. Then after that, each of the other V-stitches will get a V-stitch separated by a chain 2, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. When you get to the end, do the slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 3. And before I continue to the next round, I'm going to take my hip measurement to see whether I've gotten closer to it. Get the measuring tape and measure from one stitch marker to the other while stretching out your work. And when I stretch mine, it's getting me to almost 23, which is 46, and I can do with an extra inch. So I'll just pull out the stitch markers because I don't need them anymore. But if you've not gotten to your hip measurement, you're going to need to continue increasing. So this next row is going to be a row with no increase, but the one that follows will be an increase row. So now just keep working your rows. If you need to increase, go on increase, and then after you've hit your hip measurement, you're just going to work without increasing. So right here, I'm just going to work one V-stitch into every V-stitch till I get to the full length of my dress. I'm working a full length of 30 inches. So I'm going to repeat this row without an increase till I get to a total of 30 inches from the top to the bottom of my dress. This is after I've gotten to my full length, and from the waist up to the bottom of the dress, I've worked a total of 36 rows. and that gets me to the full length. So when I measure this from the top all the way down to the bottom of the dress without stretching, I'm getting to 31. I wanted 30 and an extra inch is good. Next, we're going to do an edging at the bottom part of the dress, and it's going to be a simple single crochet edging. So we're going to begin by chaining 1. We chain 1, go back into that stitch with a single crochet. Into the chain 2 gap, place 2 single crochets. 1 single crochet into the chain 1 gap. 2 single crochets into the chain 2 gap. 1 single crochet onto the V-stitch, which is the chain 1 gap. Then 2 single crochets into the chain 2 gap. We're going to repeat this pattern until we've gone all the way around the bottom part of the skirt, till we get back to the last stitch next to the first single crochet that we've done. At the end, we're going to do a slip stitch onto the first single crochet to complete that last round, then chain 1 and cut off the yarn, and then we're going to get a darning needle and we're going to weave in that end. Next, we're going to attach straps on the top part of the dress on this side and on the other side. Start with a slip knot. Get one of the top corners of the dress and connect the yarn right there on the top part with a slip stitch. Then chain 2. Then work a double crochet into that point of connection of the yarn. Work a double crochet. Then chain 2. Work a double crochet in between those first two stitches that we've done. Chain 2. Work a double crochet in between the double crochet and the chain 2 stitch from the previous row. Again we chain 2 and work a double crochet in between those 2 stitches over there, and this is the pattern that we're going to repeat until we have the full length of the strap. Now I'm going to keep going with this strap. Once I get the full length of this strap, I'll go to the other corner and connect the yarn and then do the same length of the strap, and I'll be back once I have the 2 straps ready. So let me finish on this one and then go on to the other one. Work both of them. At the end of the strap you should chain 1 before cutting off the yarn. Let me meet you once I have the straps ready. I've worked a total of 65 rows on each side of the straps to get me to the full length of the strap that I want, and I'm just going to get a measuring tape and show you the length that I've worked. So 65 rows give me a length of 45 inches without stretching out. Remember, this is going to stretch out, so it's going to be longer. Next, we weave in the ends that are on the top and all the other ends that are remaining on the dress before I show you how to attach the straps to the dress. Next, we cross our straps such that the one on the right goes to the left and the one on the left comes to the right. So then we're going to get the darning needle and insert it in one of the straps, and then we're going to attach the strap from the point where we stopped increasing. After you cross the straps, you're going to go to the point where you stopped increasing, and then we're just going to weave in that strap from one row to the next. Just watch what I'm doing and do the same exact thing to your dress. At the back part, you need to count the number of V stitches so that you know the middle part of the back part, so that you just attach one of the straps till you get to the middle and the other strap till you still get to the middle. Make a knot at the end of your strap and make sure that the knot is very close to the stitches, and then after making the knot, you tighten it and get your pair of scissors and cut off the remaining end, but do not cut too close to the knot. And then do the same exact thing on the other side using the darning needle, weaving the strap till you get to the middle part of the back part of the dress. Once you have the two straps in place, you can now adjust the straps as you want, and at this point we are done with the dress. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, kindly leave a like, a comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed. See you in the next one.